have some cards up here. David Mulder first. David, you can give your name, address, and you have roughly 3 minutes.
Dave Molidor, San Benito Way. You know me. I've spoken in here numerous times. I've been emailing you guys numerous times about the issue of 5G small cells. And it's been mostly fallen on deaf ears, unfortunately, besides Susan. I haven't heard you mention the word safety or health once. It's almost like you're a robot over there, just kind of not really concerned with the health and safety of anyone or the environment or the insects, the animals. It's just, what I'm hearing is the FCC wants to do this and we're going to do it. That's what I'm hearing. And you cannot provide me with one test that shows this is safe, that's tested 5G over long term and seen if there's any health and safety effects. In fact, we have, to the contrast, we already know that 3G, 4G is carcinogenic. And I could prove that. And you know I can, because I've sent you loads of peer-reviewed science. So let's talk about Mr. Hammond here. First of all, he's a Verizon consultant. Keep that in mind. Let's look at the FCC. Who's the chairman of the FCC? Ajit Pai, former Verizon attorney. Who was the FCC chair before Ajit Pai? Tom Wheeler. Tom Wheeler was the head of the NCTA, the National Cable and Telecom Association. He was a lobbyist for the wireless industry. Guys, this is the fox guarding the henhouse. The FCC is a captured agency. And I noticed that, Vice Mayor, you're not even looking at me. You're doing a crossword puzzle. How insulting. I'm coming here, taking time out of my day, and you're not even listening to me. That's really sad. Just goes to show you what we're dealing with here. FCC is a captured agency, and you guys are taking orders from a captured agency, so that makes you captured. Correct? And you guys say you guys cannot do anything, you're powerless. That's false. Section 704 of the 96 Telecommunication Act says, nothing in this act shall limit or affect the authority of local government over decisions regarding the placement, construction, and modification of these service facilities. You can also look at T-Mobile West versus City and County of San Francisco. The California Supreme Court affirmed the authority and policing powers of local governments per the California Constitution to regulate utilities. You can look at California Public Utilities Code Section 7901. It prohibits towers in the right-of-way if they incommode public use. The number 3 spot up there was parks. Guess what? If I bring my 3 kids to the park and there's a small cell, that's going to incommode my public use of not only the street, but that park. And that is a human rights violation. Period. Okay? So it says, the 7901 of the Utilities Code says that towers may be disallowed if they generate noise, cause negative health consequences, or create safety concerns. All these impacts could disturb public road use or disturb quiet enjoyment. This is straight from Section 7901. I'm not making this up. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is in our Utilities Code. If they roll this out like they want, like the FCC and the industry is mandating, it's going to disturb my quiet enjoyment. And that's human rights violation of my and my kids' lives. Period. So it's not the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next I have John-Logan Coots.
Hi, how are you guys doing tonight? Good, all right. So here's a notice of liability counteroffer that's been filed with everybody today, so you'll see it tomorrow. All of you are the principals of this immediate liability, and I'll just read some of it since you can really understand where we're coming from. So this is a notice of liability, 5G wireless technology, whereas each agent of the state and federal government is required to take an oath of allegiance under penalty of perjury to support the Constitution. As members of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of both the state and federal governments in Article 6, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution for the United States of America. Whereas the stated express purpose of the government is to establish justice and to secure the blessings of liberty as stated in the United States of America Constitution, as well as in the state constitution. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, as stated in the Declaration of Independence, 1776. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead here to the affidavit part. I, John-Logan Coots, a man of the people over the age of 21 years of age, competent to testify, hereafter I, me, or my, the claimant on the land known as Sonoma County, California, flag of 1850, as God is my witness, and recognize the rights enumerated in the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of California, do affirm that the following enumerated averments are true under oath of my Creator and penalty of perjury upon full commercial liability. For I claim that this notice of liability counteroffer is the notice of immediate liability on the part of you for the intent to cause me harm and violate my rights by allowing the installation of microwave technology such as 5G wireless networks, thus resulting in this counteroffer to you. I'll go on. For I claim that 5G microwave technology is harmful to men in the following ways, and there's a lot of them. I'm going to move on. For I claim that 5G microwave technology are harmful to children, including autism, attention deficit disorder, and so on and so forth. I'm going to keep going for time. For I claim that 5G microwave technology damages go well beyond, I'll finish here in a second, beyond the human race, as these are abundant evidence of harm and diverse plant and wildlife. And all of it is indicated, detailed in this counteroffer, and this goes. You can't get this overturned with a judge, okay? So this is in play now, and all the city will be liable for $1 million. And then the next round, we're going to get these other people that are pushing this on you. So blessings to all of you. Thank you.
All right, John, thank you. Next is Chris Gallegos.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Chris Villegas. I'm with Verizon Wireless Community Outreach, and I'm assigned to Rohnert Park. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I wanted to begin by thanking city staff for their time in drafting the documents that have been presented to you this evening. Also for taking the time to meet with the industry so that we could provide insight into what our needs are that would ensure a successful deployment within the city. I've reviewed the best practices that were presented this evening, and I believe that staff did an excellent job in drafting the best practices. However, I see that there is room for improvement. And so I would like to request that City Council direct staff to continue to work with the wireless industry as they finalize the draft ordinance that will be brought to Planning Commission next week. In addition, I would like to request that Planning Commission direct city staff to share a copy of the draft ordinance prior to the January 23rd Planning Commission hearing, and the reason for that is so that we have sufficient time to review that document and provide feedback to Planning Commission and ultimately to Council. Again, my name is Chris Villegas, and I can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. Next we have Peter Alexander.
Okay, hello again. My time started before I even got here. I'll take those extra 5 seconds in the end, perhaps. So let's start off with prophecies. Black Elk, back in the 1900s, he says, when the power of the wind is returned back to the people, we'll be in the midst of the greatest of changes. I could spend 30 minutes on that in 4 different directions, but let's go from there to Ephesians. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the powers of darkness and principalities of the air. All right. Some of you have been around for a few minutes like me, so you remember subliminal symphonics in the movie industry where they flick the Coke and the soda and the popcorn during a movie theater and people go by it during intermission. Now, This is a delivery system by the military for synthetic telepathy. Multiply subliminal symphonics by 5,000, and you have a completely subservient, acquiescent, controlled population, which they've already accomplished to a large extent. Now they want to definitely do the kill zone shot. MK Ultra synthetic telepathy. So you got a deceiving delivery boy telling me or you what I can and cannot do. I'm thinking about the threat of lethal force being forcibly imposed upon all living beings, children and animals. I'm thinking self-defense is appropriate. But being a vegan warrior, I would object to tar and feathers. He said it's a demand is growing. It's not growing, it's being foisted upon you. And it will be in the control of a very few people directly associated to the military. It's been verified that educationally Americans have been dumbed down since the 50s, and now they want complete MK Ultra synthetic mind control, which will also have a side benefit militarily as a viciously dangerous weapon capacity response at the whim of military under the UN, which is anti-US Constitution. So we got the 1947 National Security Act, which effectively trumps the US Constitution, puts us under martial law. We're under martial law, we're under corporate law, we are under Catholic Saturnia law. And for the record, my investigation finds that there is no California Bar Association. It discontinued being so in 1951 after a 50-year run with its articles of incorporation, which were never renewed. So we've been under federal law. So the Bar Association is lying to lawyers about that as well. Let's see. Let's ask ourselves how many veterans that are in this county, in this city, that took an oath to the Constitution, that put their lives on the line for the Constitution. And you're going to tell me you serve them or you respect them? You would, if you disregard this nonsense and go by the Constitution. Law enforcement as well. The United Nations is the sadistic stepchild to the usurist and the Catholic hierarchy, and all maintain trafficking of women and children in the heroin trades, and maintain allegiance to the Fed and the IRS. But no more. I am Peter, and I am commanding you to abide by your constituents' well-being, the US Constitution, first and foremost. Okay? They're telling you what to do. I'm insulted for you for having him tell you what you can't do. All right? You're being commanded, I am commanding you to abide by the Constitution and in support of your veterans and the children's health and safety, because this is nothing less than a military operation. There is substantial information verifying all this, and you are in a beautiful spot to make this difference. I say it, you hear it, it is so, it is done. I got one last thought, and that is, as surely as the Bar Association is opposed to the US Constitution, so too is the patriarchal hierarchy of the Catholic Church opposed to serving the light and power of Christ. And this is against all common sense, all good intentions. This is a complete control of the population. It is dangerous, it is military, and it is nothing less than that.
How many of these are you thinking are going to come into Runner Park at some point in time? How many more than we already have?
Well, I think we have applications that will likely be coming in the next 6 months for 3 or 4. But as cell technology improves and wants to expand, we could see a lot more. But I have no way of knowing how fast that will happen. But we could get a significant number of light poles with this type of equipment on top of them.
Like 10 or 110?
Probably closer to 10,
Okay.
short term, maybe more like 20, but yeah, probably not. I wouldn't guess 100 anytime soon, so.
And then,
And what is the rollout into residential areas that has been mentioned as a concern? Are these companies coming into residential areas in full force, or is that more of a timid entry, or how does that look from your vantage point?
In order for the small cell networks to provide the additional capacity and additional coverage into the residential areas, they need to be in the residential areas. So it's not, you can't prohibit, as Jeff was saying, you can't prohibit them from providing service in those areas. But the streetlight process is a way to ameliorate any issues about that because it's a standard design, it's approved in terms of its aesthetics, and that provides a method for the carriers to provide service in those areas using something that the city has already accepted.
So I'm sure you could probably talk for a long time about this, but just briefly, what is I don't get drop calls anywhere in town. So you just mentioned a moment ago that to prove that they have to show that service is being diminished and that they need to replace the current cells with small cells in order to give us better service. I'm getting great service. So what's the justification for this overall? Is it this has to happen for 5G to work, or what's the matter with the existing technology?
It's not a 5G issue that's driving it, and I caution that I'm not an attorney, and a lot of this is driven by the laws and the rules that are laid out. But the demand is so high that it's
for what?
The demand for wireless service.
Okay.
I've got 2 devices on me. Everybody seems to have multiple devices, certainly in the households. And so they're looking for that service to function wherever they are traveling or when they're at home. And as the demand increases, it requires additional facilities. Back in the 80s, when this all first came out, a few high sites were enough to do it, up on Sonoma Mountain. And those sites have all been abandoned because they serve too large an area and they have to reuse the frequencies. There are only so many that the government has granted.
So it's a capacity issue.
It's a capacity issue.
Okay. My question was answered about the timeline. What these poles, the one we saw, what is the vandalism rate in some of your other cities? Is there a problem with people saying, I just don't want to have that in my town, so in the dark of night, is that an issue anywhere else that people are concerned about?
I've not heard that, give an idea.
I know, I've never heard of it before.
I've not heard that come up. If you look at the diagram, there's nothing at ground level.
Right, 10 feet off the ground is the closest.
Exactly, and that's probably just the shut-off switch.
Right.
So the actual electronics are partway up the pole and the antenna is at the top of the pole.